Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check the left phone, we're going to pull that direction on this side.
They're pulling them out.
1011. Advise ready for camp.
God!
Oh, and there's
I'm
our
shocked.
first clip. Was that really the delay?
Yeah, that was the delay.
Oh, that's not good.
Ooh. Not at all.
Okay, so let me say, I'm going to say yes, and after I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, yes, and you say no, and then I'll see how long that takes because we might have to move this to another day, or come back later or something. 1, 2, 3, yes.
No.
Oh, okay. You had a bad delay at the beginning, and now there's almost no delay, so we're good.
Okay, cool.
So if our episode delays, we'll just roll with it and just try and catch up.
Yeah.
Anyway, now,
Oh my god.
so we're back this week,
Spectrum.
and this is a part 2 of a previous episode. We wanted to get this done sooner rather than later, and now is the soonest we could do it. So, Chuck, I believe this is a friend of yours again.
Yeah. So same guy. His name's Chris. We went to high school together. I grew up with him. Kid's awesome, and I call him a kid just because he's coming on the podcast. He's not. He's older than me. He's not a kid. I'm a kid. But he's a friend of mine, and he was in the Marine Corps, and then became a cop. Honestly, Chris has had probably one of the toughest upbringings I've seen with a child growing up when we were in high school. He had a rough family life, and ultimately, some friends of ours on the football team, they became like brothers, and they lived together, and it was just amazing. That family was just so awesome and took him under their wing, and it was fucking awesome. And then I saw it different in football. He was the nicest guy ever, and I think people remember probably me talking about it. And then he kind of like took me under his wing, and then he was taking like this dude was like he just had we know.
Remember, this is
a life of service that he was taking care of me, but he still needed to be taken care of. And then he got taken care of, but he still was helping other people, which was fucking crazy. So I'm assuming that's why he got into military, because he wanted to help others and support his country.
And now
he got into police work. Just a life of service, man.
Yeah. So welcome back, Chris. How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Is it? Do your palms get sweaty hearing Chuck gush over you like that?
Yeah, it's you know what? I appreciate the kind words and that I'm a kid.
Yeah, right. Chuck, he never calls me a kid, but I think that's because I have all the gray hair.
Yeah. Maybe I have a filter on. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Well, welcome back. And we wanted to. We spoke a lot about your time deployed. And we also talked about how we wanted to have you back to talk about your time on the street, because those stories just are, you never know what to expect when that's the thing, like being in a war zone, being deployed, from the stuff, and I've never been deployed to a war zone, but I think while the experiences are similar, they're also very different, because literally, police work's happening in your own backyard instead of in another country, with people from your own culture, as opposed to people from, a strange and distant land. But also there's a level of like I don't know that you'll ever see a donkey on fire walking across the street as a police officer, but I'm not saying you won't.
You might see like a chihuahua.
You'll see that in
East LA.
Right.
Especially up where you guys worked.
Yeah. And look at what happened in Boulder recently with this guy throwing Molotov cocktails and using an improvised flamethrower against people. So you have you've been there, done that for just about every aspect of human misery. And tell us a little bit about coming into law enforcement and some of the stuff that you've experienced working where you were working.
Okay, so coming into it, first of all, I'm sure you guys both know a lot of people that have probably applied to one department and then they get discouraged and think they can never be in law enforcement because they failed at that first attempt. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't do it, so I'll just give up.
Yeah, so I had applied to a couple places, San Diego and Costa Mesa, and I had gotten to a point where San Diego's like, "Hey, who are you going to choose?" Because you're at the same point in your process. So I chose Costa Mesa because it was like the relatively the same distance from where I was staying at the time, and it paid significantly more. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to choose them. Well, I get through their entire process, and then I get to the psych, and I don't pass the psych.
Uh,
So I just thought I was completely screwed. And I was kind of banking on that. Everything was going so smoothly after I gotten out of the military, and I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then when it didn't happen, I didn't even think about appealing it. I was just like, okay, I'm going to figure out something, some sort of healthcare management or something. That seems like a decent career. So I started going to school for that. And then one of my friends was interested in becoming law enforcement, and he was going to an interview and interrogation class down in San Diego. And through that, I spoke with the person that was teaching it, who was from SDPD, and basically explained the situation. He's like, no, you should reach out to your background investigator because they'll probably pick you right back up where you left off. So I did. And I got through that process, and then I failed psych again. And
Jeez.
I'm like, okay, what the, like, I'm like, I don't understand why I'm failing psych, because I'm not, it's not like I don't have any like signs of anything that would prevent me from being a police officer. So I pay for the appeal this time. And then I figured out it was the MMPI test, that huge 400 plus question test.
Yes. The good old
I was
MMPI.
It's horrible, yeah. And I was so uptight during it that I was reading too much into the questions. So like I was thinking it was insinuating I have some sort of anger problem, or I have these issues. So I was like so focused on, I can't be interpreted as having an anger problem. I'm going to say no to that. I didn't realize that was making it read invalid. And then so when I took the different approach after that, then I had no problem passing it.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I have talked to many people going through the process. And when we get to that portion, I mean, because I'm pretty nuts and I passed the psych. But I also know some really squared away people that have failed it. And I always tell them, I say, well, first of all, are you overthinking the MMPI?
Exactly.
And they're like, what do you mean? And I go, when it asks you, did you love your father? The answer is yes. Yeah. You loved your father. He may have been a piece of shit and he did all these crazy things, but ultimately in your heart, he was your dad and you loved him. When they ask you if you're fascinated by fire, you say no. While we all love staring at a good campfire, that's not what they're asking, right? Like,
exactly.
I think I answered yes to that one.
Well, so like, here's a couple of sample questions. Here's a couple of sample questions. I won't read them all, but these are true or false questions from the actual MMPI. I like mechanics magazines. I have a good appetite. I would like the work of a librarian. A person should try to understand his dreams and be guided by or take warning from them. I enjoy detective or mystery stories, right? Like, but there's some of those are very simple, yet you look at the one, a person should try to understand his dreams and be guided by or take warning from them. While I don't entirely disagree. That's a big nuanced kind of a question. Yeah. And so the answer is, no, I don't really think they should take warning and be guided by, like, look at the basic thing they're asking and answer
this
that.
This question was like 10 times on my MMPI, and it was like 500 fucking questions. And it was like two. One was like 350. The other one was like fucking 200 or some 150 or what, some craziness. And it was like, do you stare at your poop or do you look at your poop? And I'm like, yeah.
You took a different test than we took.
Yeah, I don't remember the poop question.
No, it was on there, dude. I swear to God, it was.
No,
fucking
I'm just saying you
bro.
took a different test than I took. That's crazy.
And then they asked me about my mom, and I had talked to my cousin, who failed. I talked to a couple other people who failed their psych, and they're all from the military. And I already had a past issue with the polygrapher. That guy hated me because I was military. So I was like, I'm totally gonna fail this thing. This is where they're gonna like DQ me and kick me out, right? And they bring me in, and you know, I'm answering all these questions, and I have an issue, like a bad past with my mom. Like, we don't talk. It is very bad. And questions about my mom came up, and I was like, fuck it, gonna answer them honestly and truthfully, and hopefully this guy doesn't think I'm fucking crazy. And I did. And he was like, cool. Doesn't seem like you have any issues with her. I was like, no, I love her. I just don't want a relationship with her because of X, Y, and Z. And they're like, that's normal.
But
cool.
see, that's healthy and well adjusted. People are afraid to say, I have a problem with my mother, or they're going to think I this, that, and the other thing. But I will say this, that as much as the site can be a pain in the ass, it is super important. And I'll give you just one personal life example. I know someone who did not pass the psych and, like you, appealed it and was able to win the appeal and get hired. But it turns out that she didn't pass it the first time, not because she read into or didn't understand or went too far with the questions. She just wasn't cut out for it. And she got a sympathetic psych to let her take it the second time, and she got on. But she did not make it off probation. She ultimately got canned off of probation, which was the right decision and the right call. And subsequent to her getting canned off probation, it took several years, like 5 or 6 years, for she forced her husband to lie about the fact that she was still on the department and pretended like that's the kind of behavior they're looking at. Like, to pretend you still have a job because you don't want to tell people you lost it. That's the kind of behavior they're looking to weed out in people. And so it is important. But yeah, if you fail it the first time, that doesn't mean you're not fit. You could have made mistakes.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
you pass it, you get on.
Yeah. So I got hired, and then I was going through. I went through academy, obviously. That was kind of a struggle because I had gained some weight after the Marine Corps, just like everybody does. But I had like my second pulmonary embolism right around, like, a little bit before academy had started. So I still had some blood going on in my lungs.
Ooh.
And so running pretty much, running was pretty shitty when I was in academy. But I'd been through harder things, so I just know that I'm mentally strong. So I was like, okay, I'm just not going to quit. And I mean, my wife, she saw me during the first couple of days where they try to get you to quit. I was just exhausted and beat down, but it's temporary. None of that lasts forever, and you just have to work through it, and then everything's easy after that.
Right. I mean, easy is a relative term, but I get it's like it's rolling, it's downhill, right? Like,
yes,
it's and that's there are a couple of key benchmarks. I think that the background and the poly are probably the two biggest hurdles. I mean, the physical, it's a hurdle. If you have a Chiefs interview, that's a hurdle. But usually the Chiefs interviewer is a rubber stamp. If you've gotten to the Chiefs interview, they kind of know they want you. I've rarely seen somebody get shit canned in a Chiefs interview, but I have seen it. So yeah, I can see what you're saying. I always tell people, apply to as many departments as you can. Take the first job you're offered. It's easier to become a cop once you already become a cop.
Yeah. Once you have that post certificate and they don't have to train you, they're like, fuck yeah, good to go. But Chris is a fucking animal, dude. You should have seen this mother when he was fresh in the Marine Corps, and then like through his time in the Marine Corps, this dude was stacked. Let me tell you. And I gotta say, when we got to our unit, because I was East Coast, he was West Coast. I don't know about the West Coast, but when we got there, it had this big writing on the second deck, and it said, "Welcome to the suck." And you're like, oh fuck, this is day one of the rest of my life. Fuck. And you walked into that. So it's that mindset you had, and you walked by it every day. Welcome to the suck. And like every fucking step that you went up had like different sayings on them. And you're like, dude, what the fuck? Where am I? And so, I mean, I think he's that mentality. And then that probably drove you through your probation. And knowing San Diego, because I'm fucking LA, knowing San Diego down there, and it was kind of like rough, right? When I got on, people were like, oh, fuck, I would not want to work at San Diego. And I was like, dude, really? Why? Like, oh, it's not great. And because I would do this police and fire Olympics, and I was like, shit. And that was when you were coming on. So I could only imagine my probation was tough in LA because it's LA and they're just kind of assholes sometimes, which I loved because the Marine Corps. And I was like, this is fucking cool. Were they like that with you down there?
I didn't really have anyone, at least that registered to me, that was like, I'm like, oh, this guy's a total dickhead for no reason. So maybe before I got there were people like that in San Diego that were just trying to weed people out, but they were trying their best. Like, they were actually, like, I remember when I had done a phase in Mid-City, I had a really hard time learning the streets. Like, I kept messing up where I was at, my location, all that. So my FTO sat me down at the, what was it, like a resource center or whatever, where we write paper. And he had me write out all the streets, and then he correlated them like they're alphabetical and all this other stuff. And he had me memorize them before we went back out 10-8. And so it was like they would take the time and they would really bust their ass to make sure you passed if it was cut out for you.
Yeah. Like,
Right.
Sometimes people just, when they go through that, they think they're getting picked on, they'll cry about it or whatever. But
you saw the purpose.
yeah.
There's a method to the madness.
Did you guys have rites of passage in your FTO program? Did you have like things that FTOs did? I don't want to call it hazing because I don't like that term.
Yes.
I think that genuine hazing and torturing people are not the same thing, right? Like, there are things that people say, oh, it's just hazing. And I'm like, no, that's fucking torture. Hazing is good natured and welcomes people into a fraternity or a brotherhood.
About it.
And I am about that kind of stuff, right? I'm about giving people a hard time and doing some shit. Did you guys was that allowed at your department a little bit? Did they do it unofficially?
Yes.
Are you talking like practical jokes on each other or whatever?
No,
I'll give you a perfect example. So there was an FTO at our department. His boot came out of the locker room and saw the FTO's bag and another bag. He saw two bags. One he knew was the FTO's bag, sitting together right next to each other. And so he set his war bag down next to the FTO's bag and went into roll call. At the end of roll call, the FTO says, "Hey, get our books or get our bags. Let's go 10-8." He gets the bags. The FTO follows him out, and he looks and sees the kid loading 3 bags into the trunk instead of 2. And the FTO says, "Whose bag is that?" And he goes, "Well, it was next to your bag, sir. I thought it was yours." And he goes, "That's not my bag. Don't just assume it's my bag. Did you just steal somebody's bag? You just 484 a bag?" And starts ripping him a little bit. And he goes, "Move out of the way." And he opens the bag, and inside the bag is the dictionary, the penal code, the vehicle code, yearbooks, policy and procedure. It's like all these huge books from inside the station.
Huh.
And the FTO was like, "What the hell are you doing bringing all these books with us? This is stupid. We're not going to need all these out in the field." He says, "We have to go 10-8. You have 5 minutes to put every single book in this bag back in the station where it belongs and be back out here so we can get 10-8. "I'm sorry, I didn't know it was your bag." And he goes and he grabs the books and he has to go put them back in on his 5-minute time limit. And when a friend of mine asked him, he goes, would you do that for?" Like, why? He goes, "He'll never have to ask me where any of those books are ever again." And
okay,
I thought to myself, okay, he fucked with him and teased him and gave him, an impossible task or however you want to articulate it. But he also had a reason for it. And
right.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I also don't necessarily disagree with pranks to a point. But to me, pranks are for people that have earned it. And a boot hasn't earned a prank yet. A boot's not part of the brotherhood yet. A boot has to prove himself. So I guess that's what I'm asking, Chris, is if you had like things. I had to wear a tie and long sleeves, and I had to sit in the car when we went to get coffee. They said, "Go in, get your coffee, go back in the car and sit down, shut up and study. You don't have time to jaw jack with the veteran officers. You have time to do one thing, and that's study."
Yeah, so during training, coming out of academy, they, at least for my training, they didn't encourage, trainees to be hanging out with everybody that was already 10-8 on their own. It was the same thing, nothing about wearing a tie or whatever, but, we'd have to sit in the car, monitor the radio, and then kind of study stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn.
And so anything beyond that, anything that goes into like, because then again, I've heard some other stuff and seen other FTOs do stuff. I'm like, that's putting your boot in the trunk and driving around with them and all that kind of stuff. Like, you're not teaching them anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the training I got there was all pretty good because like a lot of it was like about location and stuff like that. Like, all right, where are we? I didn't know. I'd have to get out and look at the street sign,
Yes. Mid block, stop the car, turn off the lights. I've been shot. Where are we at? If you don't know,
Yes.
Go run back and tell me.
Yeah.
Yes, important. That's not hazing. That's like survival, right?
Right.
No one's picking on you, and they do that to everybody. It's not like they're treating you different.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I was gonna say ours was not warranted. It was not allowed. It was policies against it, but every boot knew coming in that these are the unwritten rules. These are your rites of passage. You must sit in the front row. You must wear long sleeves until your FTO takes you out. No sunglasses, no earpieces. You have to learn the basics. If you don't know where you are, you're running and you're coming back, right? You're doing mock pursuits in the car because your partner's an asshole and then just starts speeding up and then starts, hey, where are we at? And if you mess up, he drives till he's in the middle of the block and says, go run. So the person's getting a jog in and going to learn. There was things like that we had as rites of passage, and the silly things don't talk unless spoken to, sit in the front row, sit in the car, all that kind of stuff. I just
call that traditional police department.
But we had some kids coming on after like 4 or 5 years, or 3 years or 4 years I'd been on. And they were like, that's against policy. You will not do that to me. I will. And Hannah, Walt knows him. Walt knows this kid. So he could speak to it. He had a pompadour fucking week or month 1 on his head. He wore short sleeves. He wore an earpiece. He wore sunglasses. He didn't sit in the fucking front row. And I came up to him one day and I was like, hey man, you told me that you can wear your fucking big poofy hair, right? He goes, yeah. I said, because you want to be classic and wear long sleeves and a tie. He was like, yeah. I said, but you're in short sleeves today. Why don't you cut that fucking mop off your head? And my FTO, or not my FTO, his FTO was like, no. And it was a friend of mine. And I talked to her later. I was like, hey, what the fuck? She's like, dude, he's going to beef you. He already beefed 2 FTOs. That's why we're letting him do whatever the fuck he wants. And I was like, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, so Chris, you get through FTO. How long is your FTO program there?
God, what was it? I think it's 6 months. I don't remember. Maybe it's I know
the state minimum when I went through was 16 weeks. You had to be in a car with a field training officer. We had a 5-phase system. Phase 1, sit down, shut up, don't say anything. Maybe I'll let you work the radio. Phase 2, sit down, shut up, work the radio, write down where we're going, know where we're at. Phase 3, you're going to start taking information and writing basic reports. Phase 4, you're going to start doing phase 3, you're driving. Phase 4, you're driving and handling everything. And I'm doing about the FTOs
all in 16 weeks
of the work. And then phase 5, I'm in plain clothes and you're in uniform. And all I'm doing is watching you and taking notes. So that was our system. And you did that
in 16 weeks?
Yes, I did.
Ooh, that's a lot.
You're on probation for a year. You're on probation.
6 months with an FTO.
That's true. Probation. Yeah.
I was 6 months with an FTO.
No, yeah. There's no
3 deployment periods. And their first deployment period doesn't fucking count.
So my phase 5 FTO told me, he goes, okay, you're done. I'm going to sign you off. So I'm going to get back in uniform for our last week. And we're just going to go hook and book like a 2-man unit. And so that was cool. But for you guys, does that sound about right? You were on probation after FTO, but FTO didn't last the entire time you were on probation.
No, it didn't. And so with our situation, we God, I forget what the first part was called, but it was like a couple different weeks or 2 2-week periods. I don't remember exactly, where you would just basically, like you said, sit there and shut up and listen to the radio, watch what the
Mhm.
FTO does, watch how somebody is a cop. And
Right.
there was I was in Northern Division and Southern Division, and they you know what, they weren't just assholes to me for no reason because they were FTOs and I was new though. Um, and they encouraged me to kind of point stuff out, and I think that they even let me, like, pull a car over and stuff like that, call it out on the radio. So it was good to get that start, and then you go into first phase, second, third, and then I think shadow phase is what the last one with them in plain clothes is.
Yeah, you're right. Technically, my first phase was called orientation, and it lasted for a week. But yeah, that sounds right. So you finished
I got screwed,
your FTO
guys.
program, and then you get out on your own. And so let's talk about some of the stuff you experienced when you're now a cop, and holy shit, like, that's it. They gave me a police car and a badge and a gun, and I can go arrest people, and it's a crazy moment. How were you liking it?
I actually, it was nothing like, leaving the wire for the first time in Iraq where you're super nervous. And I don't know, it just felt much different. You felt, obviously you feel a bunch of pride and stuff, kind of like graduating boot camp. But
Whoa,
you
fuck.
you want to, like, I don't know, for me, I wanted to go out and do stuff. So like, I was really into like, arresting people for drugs.
Yeah.
Like, immediately I wanted to rep it out because I figure the best way to learn something is to expose yourself to it. So I was like,
Right.
okay, I know there are people doing dope over here. I'm going to go contact them, do a bunch of field interviews, try to, like, arrest people for drugs. And that's kind of what I started doing.
Were you a one-man unit, like an L car or an XL car or whatever you guys call it? I know a lot of agencies call them L cars. But were you a one-man unit car when you got off FTO and you were out working, or did you have a partner, or was it like a beat partner type of thing where you work like A27 and they're working A26 and you're a sister car, and then you guys meet up for calls and it splits the division, or it splits the RDs in half, right?
That's
Or how was
exactly
yours?
that's exactly how. And sometimes,
Okay.
staffing permitting, or if it was more efficient, they would put you in a 2-man unit and they call it a king unit.
See,
Okay.
that was the same for us. And don't get me wrong, I totally love and agree with LAPD's basic car plan. I am the firm advocate for 2-man
fucking awesome.
cars get shit done way more efficiently than single-man units. Every department should have run 2-man units, unless you're like physically unable to because you don't have the bodies. We were like you. We had Adam units and boy units. Adam unit was a single-man hoop, and a boy unit was a 2-man hoop. And if staffing permitted, you could double up a car and you could just go ham, right? But for the most part, you were riding solo, and your backup, was a ways out.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't too far out in San Diego. The way the coverage was, for the most part, everyone was within a couple minutes.
Yeah,
one time, it took a little longer. It just depends on what's going on in the city too.
Yeah, there was occasionally did you guys ever back up county and have to go out and like we had,
like for the
I remember
sheriffs?
one time so we had a deputy out in the boonies by himself requesting backup code 3, and the closest units were us in the city, and I had to drive 20 minutes code 3 out of town to back this guy up. Did you guys ever have to do that?
So I don't remember having to do that. I do remember, when some like an OIS would happen or something like that, then we'd cover other divisions.
Yeah, within the city or in
yeah, San Diego's pretty big like LA, so you'd go to another division.
Right. But you never really went out and backed people up outside of your jurisdiction.
Not that I can recall. No.
Sure, it would have to be
like
a major incident or something like that.
Yeah, like an officer down or something. Then they'd be like, send all the units code 3. But we had, like, I think when I was there was one officer down situation, but that was within San Diego PD.
So now let's talk about some of the stuff that, because this is the best part, right? The floor is yours, man. What's your story? You can tell us anything you want about your time on the street and what you got to do, and memorable, fun, crazy, insane, gory, sad, tragic. And some of our calls can be all of those things rolled up into one. It's amazing.
Okay. Let's see. I think I'll start off with some funny stuff. Obviously, you guys have dealt with like 5150s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
For those of you who don't know, 5150 is not just a Van Halen album. It's a California Welfare and Institutions Code that says that we can take you on a 3-day hold if you're a danger to yourself, a danger to others, or gravely disabled. Crazy enough, where I live now, that doesn't happen. There's no such code. And if you're FUBAR, they don't have the legal authority to take you unless you've committed a crime, which is crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
That's horrible. Okay, so right? my beat was Hillcrest in San Diego when I started off there. I'd say a lot of the calls were people that were, 5150. They weren't all there or on drugs. There's a lot of the calls there. There were 2 major hospitals there, and then County Mental Health a couple beats away. But you have an influx of these people. Well, one of the more frequent calls would be to help the fire department out if somebody's losing it inside of an ambulance. So I get called to help them out, and there's this guy that's just violently shaking in the ambulance. They're like, I need you to help us hold him down. He's like going crazy. So I'm helping him hold him down, put him in I cuffed him to the gurney. I used both my sets of cuffs, cuffed him to the gurney. And he's screaming about aliens in his nuts. He's saying there's aliens in his balls. He's just screaming this.
I've had aliens in my balls. Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, it's like that wasn't on my bingo card today, to hear that, right? So we get to the hospital, and then they put soft restraints on him and take my cuffs off. Well, as soon as they do that, he breaks free of the soft restraints, and then he isn't trying to fight anyone or escape or anything. He's just screaming and pointing at his balls, and he grabs them really hard and saying there's aliens in them and they need to get cut out.
Oh no.
So then I have to help the fire department put him back in the gurney, and then we restrain him again, and then he gets a sedative and he gets put out.
Thorazine.
Yeah.
So, dude, did you ever have? Cause you brought up 5150s and fucking dude, I was like the 5150 whisperer. I don't know why, but I handled a lot of fucking 5150s, like a lot, and they always decided to get naked. Like most of the time, they got fucking naked.
Dude, the 5150s always get naked. The PCP always naked. Yeah, dude, they all get naked.
I don't know. Maybe it was my face. Maybe it was the bald head that I had.
No, I think it's not. I think it's just the 5150s. Because when you get crazy, you want to get back to the way God intended you to be.
Yeah, but then they got angry. They would get angry. I had to take down the 5150 in the middle of the street, take him to the hospital, and he was butt ass naked. He was like stripping down. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's gonna be a fucking naked fight. This is great. Oh, great. It's early in the morning. I'm like, I just want to get my Western bagel and my coffee, dude. That's all I want. And we got to go fight a freaking 5150 middle of the street in Tarzana. And long story short, take him into custody, take him to the hospital. And then you said soft restraints. I'm like, dude, no, keep him in my cuffs until we're the fuck out of here. And you got him under drugs, because the moment you take those things off, he's going to fight. He's going to do some dumb shit. He's going to run down the hall naked. Like, don't do that. And they're like, sorry, sir, we're going to do it. I'm like, you motherfuckers. And I was like, all right, cool. If something happens, it's on you. And they're like, we have it. I was like, okay, cool. But can you stay here? I'm like, fucking fine. And we're sitting there, and then this Animal Planet shows on, right? And it's of snakes and cobras in fucking India. And there's this cobra on the screen doing this. And so the dude pulls his fucking his cord that he has on his finger. He pulls it out of the machine, and it's one of those O2 sensors. And he's doing the same thing with his fucking hand. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then he whips it right in my fucking face, and then fights on in the fucking hospital. And then I'm like, that's cool.
Fighting a naked man is fighting a naked man covered in poop and bodily fluids.
Yeah.
I hate 5150.
That happens, yes. Poop and bodily fluids.
Poop and bodily fluids. And I've had to, I'm sure in San Diego you've had your fair share of drunk college kids. You've had your fair share. I mean, what's that? Is it the gas lamp district?
Gas lamp. So I only did a phase there, though. I didn't like work there aside from a phase.
Okay.
So like, but I mean, there were drunk college kids and whatever, but usually, interestingly enough, you could really talk them out of doing their stupid crap for the most part. At least that was my experience. So it was usually the people that were really high on drugs that, you know, you have to put in a wrap, and then they soiled themselves during your use of force, and they tell you, hey, by the way, I have AIDS. And you're like, that's cool. All that's all over my uniform. And
Yay.
yeah,
Right.
that's awesome.
So you fought people that shit and piss all over you?
Yes.
What, you didn't?
Love it.
You didn't fight people that piss and shit all over you? Where department did you work for?
I did. I had a guy shit in my hand.
Oh, there you go. See,
Yeah.
that's right.
Of course. I just, man, it's fucking great. You ever have to fight? Because you're so close to the Marine Corps base down there, Oceanside, Pendleton, all that stuff. Did you have to ever fight or arrest or deal with any drunk Marines?
That's another weird thing. So I was always able to, again, like talk the drunk Marines out of doing stupid things.
Well, you spoke their language.
I think so. I spoke eating crayons, and I'm like, oh. And they're like, oh, I totally understand that. They're like, I get it. Okay. I mean, the most obnoxious people I encountered were, I think they were Navy people, Navy sailors. They were in PB maybe. And it was just like basically some roided out dude in PB with all his sailor buddies. And he was trying to threaten to fight us. And I told him I was going to taser him if he took another step. And then he just starts talking trash. And like, I was pretty hefty at the time, you know, festively plump.
Thick with two C's.
Yeah. So he was talking major shit about that, trying to get me to do something or whatever. But I mean,
yeah,
that was my fault. So it didn't really offend me because I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I ate too much, whatever I ate, donuts, pizza, didn't work out enough. And here I am. So what am I going to get crazy? No, I don't care. You're going to get tasered if you try to fight us. So stop.
It's really hard to keep your cool and not take the bait, right? Like sometimes
I think you get used to it.
You do get used to it, but there's occasionally, man, sometimes you want like, oh, you know, and there's ways to do it the other way. Just so you're clear, there are ways for cops to get people to fight if they want them to, but there are ways to get yourself talked into a fight if you're not careful with some of these guys, because they will push your buttons.
Yeah, I think that's where having a good partner is important, because your partner will recognize, hey, like you're getting a little too invested in this. You're getting too pissed off. You need to like, I'll handle the contact here.
Yeah.
And then
I got you.
And that's like the best, you know, cover unit to have or partner to have, because just, you know, you never know if you're with someone. Like for me, I was never to a point where I was going to like go nuts because someone's talking trash, because I need more than that to like get into it with someone physically. I just do. But I've seen it. And then you just talk to your partner like, hey, you know, I've got the contact.
For me, it wasn't so much trash talking as it was watching them do things like there's certain times where you're like, well, they haven't actually crossed the line for me to take them into custody or do anything yet. But what you're watching them do to other people and say to other people, you're like, oh, I just want to rat pack this dude. So
that's a human emotion.
That's where that articulation comes in. You know what I mean? You're like, I gotta find a way to arrest this fucking guy.
He's coming right for me.
Oh, shit! You're drunk? Oh, I can smell it. Oh crap! All right, you're going to jail for public talk. Cool. And then they try to fight. You're like, if you fight me, bro, we're fucking you up.
Yeah. I always love this because it's you get so many different answers. When I say to you, what sticks out in your mind as, because we talked about, Chuck said he had somebody shit in his hand. I personally have never had somebody shit in my hand deliberately. But I have fought people covered in shit. I've discovered shit so many different places as a cop that I didn't think I would, right? You never know. But forgetting the poop factor, there are always those things that like stick out in your mind where you'll never forget it for the rest of your life. And if you tell somebody, you just say you can't make this shit up.
Just a second.
Oh no, it's okay.
My kid's home. My wife.
It's perfect.
Okay.
No, my question. So I'm just wondering what sticks out in your mind as, or what things, if you have them, stick out in your mind as you just can't make this shit up. Like, when was that? Do you recall having a moment where you're like, I cannot believe what I'm dealing with? That surreal moment.
Let's see. I mean, there were a lot that kind of blend together. I was taking somebody. So I was taking a guy on a ride along, getting Hillcrest, and it's like, I think 3 a.m. or something. And somebody crosses the street, screaming, and they're wearing like a hot pink wig and fishnets and all this stuff. And I have to describe them on the radio. Like, I think I'm getting flagged down. There's something going on. Somebody's screaming. And I just describe, male wearing fishnets, high heels, hot pink wig and whatever. And then he starts like explaining what happened. And like, he was a legit victim of a crime. And it was just crazy because I'm just slowly going through the street, slowly driving. And then this dude just bolts in front of my car. And then when we stop and I start talking to him, I find him in an alleyway, get the ambulance over there. He says he was like a victim of all kinds of stuff, like I think sodomy and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then he described the person who did it to him. I think they were wearing like a neon green wig and fishnets and all that stuff. So I had to get on the radio and say that again. And I'm like, Jesus. And
victim is wearing a blonde wig and pink fishnets. Suspect is wearing brunette wig and green fishnets.
Yeah, it's like, how do I say this, without sounding like a jackass? And sometimes you kind of have to write it down too to just kind of say it right,
Yeah. When you don't, you end up saying some dumb shit over the air and get you in trouble.
Exactly. No. So you kind of have to just maybe take a second, write it out, and then say it, because you don't want to sound wrong when you're saying it. But yeah, I think that was probably the most random thing I encountered over there. I had a person this was interesting. They had Sharpied a Hitler mustache on themselves, but they were yelling random things. And they Sharpied other stuff on their body. And they were holding up signs that I don't remember exactly what they said, but I'm just trying to get their information. They're saying their name's Poodle Glam, Lady Gaga, and they wouldn't give me their name. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, and I didn't have enough to like arrest this person. So I made sure they didn't meet the criteria to get taken on a hold. And then I moved them along. I'm like, look, you can't be out here yelling all this because it's going to cause a problem with the people in the bar. And you don't want that. So he moves. He generated like 3 radio calls that night. This is actually the guy that had AIDS and had urinated and crapped his pants when he resisted arrest. Yeah. So ultimately I find him in a church parking lot because he generates a radio call there and he's yelling more stuff. At first he's cool. And then I go to put him in the cuffs and then he goes nuts. So, have to put him in a wrap, find all kinds of drugs on him. And then he tells me, that he's that he's got the AIDS. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Totally random.
Right.
Oh man. That's fucking horrible. Ew. Dude,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say my buddy got he got stuck with a needle and to prevent against HIV because he didn't know his dude was nasty. And Vacuna, that's his name. Vacuna, solid fucking dude. This dude, I watched this dude plunge drugs and shit out of it, or trying to plunge drugs and shit out of a toilet. And then he was in there for like fucking hours, not in hours, but like 20 minutes. And he's just fucking, what the fuck are you doing back there and serving a search warrant? And he's like, I'm plunging the first shoving drugs. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Dude's funny. And we're like, there's no stop. There's no drugs down there. Dude, we're here for phones and shit. But he got stuck on an arrest. And this dude was a shit magnet for sure. He got his fucking thumb broken, dude. All this shit happened in 1 year, just doing crazy shit. He got stuck with needles and they had to give him a whole cocktail into his like, tell me like almost like rabies shots or wherever the fuck. And he's like, I can't do it anymore. After like 2 weeks, he's like, I quit. He's like, if I get AIDS, I get AIDS. I don't care, because it hurt so bad. Did they have to do that to you? Did they have to give you anything to prevent against
the
infection from HIV/AIDS?
Yeah.
No, I didn't get any cocktail or anything. I think I put it in a minor injury report or whatever. But I don't have AIDS, so
You didn't get poked, right?
Yeah, no. It was just
And you had no
excrement.
So you're pretty safe. I mean, you kind of have to get poked or have an
Yeah.
open wound or anything like that.
Exactly.
I saw a guy get poked. Oh man, watching a senior officer, you know, good married guy, been on the job 25, 30 years, and he's searching a dude and he gets a poke from a needle that was in the guy's pocket, and that was enough. And I mean, I'm retired now, I can admit this, but you know, I would do the, hey, got anything in your pockets? It's gonna cut me, stick me, poke me, anything like that. And you should tell me now, blah, 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 blah. And I would give them the whole, I'm not gonna hold again, you know, like I just need to know. And inevitably I got to a point where there were certain people that I would lean in and go, if you don't tell me and I get poked or cut, this is gonna end real bad for you. And it was just that like this guy couldn't have sex with his wife for 6 months. He had to get like all these different tests. He was scared shitless for that whole time. You know, that's those are those like weird stressors like the people don't know about or talk about because they've never been in that position where just getting, you know, a finger poke by something. I think ER nurses and doctors, maybe dentists who have paid, like, you know, imagine being a dentist, having a patient come in and knowing that you have to use a drill and a needle on somebody who's like, oh, by the way, I have AIDS. Right. That's the stress level of that.
Yeah.
Right? I remember. So I'll tell you one of the ones that sticks out in my mind is so we had a state hospital for the criminally insane that actually was located within our city. And I always tell people if Hannibal Lecter were a real person, this is one of the places they would have considered putting him. And so I always told people, I said, if you see a guy in a CDC jumpsuit running down the street, worst thing that's going to happen is they might break into your house and take some loose cash or, you know, a couple of items they can hawk. You might steal your car. But if somebody breaks out of that state hospital, they're going to cut off your skin and wear it as a mask. Right. And we had a guy. So I got called to, and I used to, I would not be caught dead at a donut shop in uniform. That was one of my hard and fast rules. And it was 6 a.m, maybe 5:30 ish. And a donut shop that was open because they'd gotten in at 4 a.m. to start making the donuts or whatever, had a guy outside in a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair, covered in they're just making a racket. And they called, said, can you get this guy away from our donut shop? So one of the few times I was near a donut shop in uniform was because they called me, and I get there. This dude, I swear, he looked like if you imagine like a one of those kind of post-apocalyptic cyberpunk movies where everything is made out of junk and people are just like losing their minds everywhere and, you know, that kind of thing. This guy looked like that. He looked like he thought he was a wizard, but he was covered in just tchotchkes and shit that he had pulled out of trash. Like, just a weird fucking dude, right? And he was yelling and screaming, right? And I go out there and I contact him, and he's saying all kinds of random shit about he's the prophet, and I'm like, all right, he's whack, but we'll see if he's 5150 or whatever, but I'll get him to move along. And he starts talking about his sacrifice and this and that. And when I run his name, there was a probation officer that was on her way to work, and she had her radio on in her take-home car, and she heard his name come up, and she turned around and came to see me because she heard his name come over the air. and she comes over and when she gets there, she's because this guy won't leave, and I'm thinking, okay, am I going to arrest him? Maybe probation will violate him because she came over there and said she was coming. She gets there and she's like, do you know the backstory on this dude? I said, no. And she goes, well, he was just he's on my caseload. He's recently released from the state hospital. And I said, oh, why was there? She says, he thinks he's a prophet of God. And the sacrifice he is talking about was before when we locked him up, or when he got locked up, it was because police responded to his house and he had cut his dick and balls off with a box cutter. And that was his sacrifice to God, was to take his own genitals off using a box cutter. And now he was just riding around our city on his motorized wheelchair, fat, dumb, and happy, claiming. I'm like, why did he get out? But I mean, that's the flaw in the system, right? Mental illness is not something you can just lock people up for, even if they're the kind of mentally ill that cuts their dick and balls off with a box cutter. Welcome to California, ladies and gentlemen.
Good Lord.
That's nuts.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Fuck me. That's
That's
crazy. One of the members from Wu-Tang Clan did that shit.
What's that?
I said one of the members from Wu-Tang Clan did that. That was an LAPD case. Friends of mine rolled on that. It was fucking wild. I was like, no fucking shit. Like,
One of the members of Wu-Tang Clan castrated himself?
Yeah, at a party, and then jumped off the second floor and then threw his fucking junk, and they found it anyways. But that's here nor there. But you, Chris, I know you worked San Diego, you worked Oceanside, and now you're doing something else. But in those times, what was your most memorable, or what's the thing that you love to do the most? I know I've seen you do some crazy shit where running marathons and you got your health back and doing all the shit for the Special Olympics and all that stuff, giving back to your community. What was some of the most memorable shit that you did while you were as a cop?
So I never ran a marathon. I'm not that crazy or in shape.
Oh, I just saw you run maybe a 5K, whatever.
Yeah, half marathons as far as I'll go. Most rewarding stuff, obviously, fundraising for Special Olympics. That was awesome because you make so many good connections there, and those are just people that they're always positive, and they want to do positive things, and they want to, they just want to help other people out if they can. Like I got to make 2 people honorary police officers at Oceanside. They were, both chiefs at the time were really supportive of it. And that's just such a lasting difference for a community as a whole. So that's probably, outside of my regular police work, that's the most rewarding, like community service oriented thing.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of work on catalytic converter theft. There were a lot of people that helped me. Like, I worked with an analyst out of Carlsbad PD, and then my analyst at Oceanside that really helped kind of put this. We called it a working group. Couldn't call it a task force, but we had, over like a 2-year period, we tangibly reduced the amount of thefts we had by like over 50, almost 60% in the county, just by figuring out ways to be more aggressive with arresting these people, getting bail enhancements, and using what tools in the law enforcement realm we had to get creative and hold these people accountable. So that was good. And then also working probably with Elder Justice Task Force, because I got to focus on a lot of financial elder abuse scams where, somebody's mom or grandparent was just either catfished and taken for their life savings, or somebody tricked them into a Ponzi scheme and started to steal money from them. And I got to work with a lot of awesome people in that really do a lot of just great things. They get a lot of money back for victims, and people don't realize it. But there's really a lack of education throughout the country regarding these scams. There's like billions of dollars getting scammed out of these people still.
Oh, these elder abuse scams are terrible.
Yeah.
They're
wild. A woman it's all over social media. My wife told me about it. She's 71 years old and believes, I don't know. I mean, it seems like she still does because of some of the videos that have gone around on social media, but I haven't spoken to this woman. She sends money to her fiance, who she believes and was told that at 71 years old, she is engaged to Matt Rife. the comedian, and
Oh,
she
wow.
sent him. Get this. You want to know how much? $100,000.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's
$100,000.
that's some of them do even more. Some of them do over $1 million.
What's one of the craziest ones you've seen, dude? I mean, I've seen some crazy shit, and I'm like, what the fuck? What is one of the? You worked at task force, so what was one of the craziest ones that you've seen? You're like, that was interesting.
God, there was one where a victim that didn't meet the criteria of the elder abuse was romance scammed out of about $500,000. It was his like life savings, and he kept getting told no. You know, people wouldn't investigate his case and stuff like that. And what I did was I gave him a list of evidence to give me. You know, the who, what, where, when, and why, email communications. You know, all of the transaction information from Zelle payments to wire transactions, everything.
Right.
And I really looked into it. I ended up doing a bunch of warrants on like the phone numbers he communicated with, the emails, and a lot of it tied back to a money mule in Nebraska. It tied to one there and then one in North Carolina, I think, but mainly the one in Nebraska at first.
Mhm.
And this was part of a at least national level scam ring. So it wasn't just my Oceanside victim. There was a victim in San Pedro that I interviewed, and there were several victims throughout Nebraska and other parts of the country. So this was well over. It had to be over a couple $1 million total. And I got to go to Nebraska actually to arrest this person and interview them. And it's interesting because at first she started off as it seemed like a romance scam victim. And then all of a sudden she, for some reason, starts getting involved in facilitating the money. So like she'd receive packages with a lot of cash and then she'd send it via MoneyGram over to all these, you know, African names in Nigeria, like, Okafor was a common last name you'd hear. And the original victim of mine, his scammer was using images of an adult film actress named, God, what was her name? Damn it. I can't think of her name, but yeah, but she was an adult film actress. And the thing is they'll find you at like the lowest point of your life. So this guy had just been told he's getting a divorce and he was really broken. So he starts getting this communication online from somebody that's out of his league. And he's just like, wow, you know, I'm good. I'm going to be able to move on. And that's how it always starts, as some sort of hook, whether it's that or a Ponzi scheme or whatever. And in this one, it was all romance scams. Ultimately, so at first they dismissed the case with prejudice, and we're like, why? You know, we had worked for a long time on this case, between, you know, what I did and then what people in the FBI did. They really did a lot of hard work too. And we were able to find, you know, communications where she like specifically explained, this isn't right, I don't like doing it. And she's like, it clearly showed her receiving a financial gain for participating in this.
Right.
And straight up admitting it. So after a lot of talk, you know, between our prosecutor here and then the prosecutor out there, they're able to revive the case. And then they ended up getting a guilty conviction, a felony conviction, but they didn't include the Oceanside case, which was interesting. But I don't completely understand why, but it was still kind of is still a victory because it showed like, even if you're outside of this jurisdiction, we can still get you, because they still did get her on charges in Nebraska.
Right. And that's one of the hardest part. Like we received, I'm sure you guys did too. We received so many calls from people talking about, you know, my mother's being scammed, or my father's being scammed, or old people saying, is this a scam? And I yes, it is. Well, I already sent them money. Can you do anything about it? Like, lady, I don't have the resources to go chase down a suspect in Nigeria. And that, you know, like call the FBI. There's just not enough resources to chase that stuff down. I mean, we talked to recently a guy who works on the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force,
The child thing.
and there aren't enough cops to work the Internet Crimes Against Children cases, let alone to then deal with elder abuse. And if you don't think for a second it's prevalent, I will tell you that we had a joke, and this was starting in the early 2000s. We had a running joke that if you came across a tweaker and you asked them their occupation, 80% of the time you could safely guess that they would tell you they were a caregiver for an elderly person, because scumbags take jobs caring for the elderly because they can steal their medication and scam them out of money and live rent free.
It's a very common way for them to scam people, and that's like the low level stuff, you know.
Yeah, there's a recent one where the people are getting charged because the old person that they were scamming was dead. Like, he's in the house dead.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. In the house still?
Yeah.
Fuck. I mean, I heard about AOC's family like taking dead people's shit and collecting benefits off of it that have been dead for like 10 years. But it is what it is. You know, they're not gonna get in trouble. But Chris, I'm sure you've seen like a lot of crazy scams and things like that. Is there anything that you could tell the public as we get ready to close out and go into our dedication? Is there anything that you could give the public to help them because I know you worked this and I know this was a freaking you're a big part of this. Is there anything that you could tell to other people, help them from not getting scammed or not, spotting it and helping their elderly family not get scammed, or things they could brief them on?
Yeah, sure. First of all, if it seems too good to be true, it likely is.
Yeah.
Whether that be like if it's somebody that's completely out of your league and it sounds like what they're writing you is a romance novel, probably it's a scam. It's probably some pre-scripted nonsense. And if they start asking for money from Zelle, PayPal, Venmo, if they ask for gift cards, especially, giant red flag.
Oh God, yeah.
Then that needs to be noted. And if your family member tells you about it, then you need to like be damn near kicking down their door to make sure they understand they're being scammed. There's a documentary on Hulu about it. I think it's called The Anatomy of a Scam or something. It talks about a romance scam. And I highly recommend that people watch it because it really shows one of the people actively is still being scammed because they're paying someone in Nigeria to allegedly reveal who the other Nigerian scammer is, which that's the thing. They get just sucked into this stuff. And so, yeah, pretty much kick down the door of that loved one and just be like, look at all these facts. Look at what's going on. This is not a real person. It's important that we do something here. And if they send money, if they find it within pretty much as soon as they find it, whether it's Bitcoin or whatever, they need to go on IC3. I believe it's IC3.gov, because that's a FBI. That's a database that sends information to the FBI, and they need to put all of that information in an IC3 report, because it'll kind of memorialize everything. You'll have your Bitcoin wallet, you'll have your transaction information, wire information, and then file a police report as soon as possible. Because if there's some sort of a cooperation with the FBI, sometimes they can reverse these wire transfers if it's within 3 days. Mm-hmm. There's like they've reversed a lot of them. They're doing their best, and like you guys said, there aren't enough cops, but they're still doing something. And for those people, that's everything. Even if it's 50 grand, if it's 100 grand, $1 million, that's their whole life.
Sometimes it's just $1,000, and that they will not be able to eat if they send you $1,000. And I'll say this: if to everybody listening, if somebody's asking you to send them money, you don't just send somebody money because they called you on the phone. That's rule number one. Number two, if they say they're from a government agency, that is easily verified, right? Like I tell people all the time that try to use the excuse, I didn't know that you were really a cop. It's why I didn't pull over. Like, did you drive to the police station and pull into the police station and like try that? Did you, oh, the IRS called me and they did it. Did you say, okay, let me hang up. Let me get your name and your badge number or your employee number or whatever it is. And then I'm going to hang up with you. And then I'm going to call the public number to the IRS. and I'm going to give them your name and tell them what you're claiming. And, but they don't think of these things. They're old. They a lot of times they're lonely.
Right.
They want to trust people. So be skeptical. Yeah. So I guess that's it.
100%. And no, the DMV, Social Security Administration, and any government agency will not send you a text, will not call you. They will send you certified mail. They will not call you. They will not request money saying that you have warrants and you must pay them before we come to your house and arrest you. That is a scam. Those are big red flags. And I believe, Chris, I don't think you mentioned it, but if you do see something suspicious or funny, and you think someone might be trying to scam you, but you're like, this is a scam, you can report that to, I want to say, the FTC.gov, the Federal Trade Commission, and you can report suspicious activity with financial crimes and things like that. And if you know your agency has a task force and you're actively you're trying to scam you can always give that info to them and create a suspicious activity report or something like that. But yeah, I think those are a couple other really good things too as well.
Yeah. Well, as we always do, we like to let our guests dedicate their episode to somebody. And Chris, do you have, I know you did last time, do you have a dedication this episode?
Oh yeah. So and this is Chuck and I both pretty much we wanted to talk about our friend Rice a little bit. We didn't get to, but we covered a lot of stuff, and so we wanted to dedicate it to him. He was a tracker who passed away in a training accident. 13, 14 years ago, I think, maybe 15. I don't know. It's like a time warp. But he was a really loving family man. Probably, I'd say he had the best understanding of what it was to be a husband and father of any mid-20-year-old that I've ever met. And, so when he passed away, when the AAV sank in the jetty, it was unfortunate. It was really sad. I'm friends with his wife on social media, and I see, his daughter grow up and everything. And it's just like, it's pretty surreal. So yeah, I like to dedicate it to Rice and also his family, and then any other military family, because the people that stick around, I didn't stick around, and there's a lot of people that don't stick around. The people that make a career out of it, that's another level of stress. Being gone for a deployment, especially if there's some conflict going on, puts a lot of stress on the family. So that's who I would like to dedicate it to.
Well, rest easy, brother. We got it from here. Chuck, do you want to add anything to that? Because I know.
Yeah, I mean, so Rice was one of my first NCOs when I got into the Fleet Marine Corps and 2nd Amphibious Assault Battalion. And I believe I went to Charlie Company, and then I went to H&S Company, and I was with him the whole time. We went and did like a 6-month tour over in 29 Palms together. And when it was all said and done, this is when he got his wife pregnant, and he was thinking about, moving and doing something else. And he ultimately went to a school battalion where he ended up passing away. He's right. Chris is right. The dude had the best understanding of what it was to be a father. And let me tell you, he had a very checkered past. He had his struggles with alcohol, and he is, the moment that he knew his lady was pregnant, that's when everything changed for him, and he got sober and was the best person in the fucking world. The dude was so kind, so nice. He had a great understanding of what family was. I had hour-long conversations with that dude about family, because I had a daughter at the time, or she was, my wife was my ex-wife at the time. She was, but my wife at the time, she was pregnant with my youngest, or my oldest. I'm sorry. The dude was fucking awesome. I could go for hours and talk about the crazy shit that dude did, and the awesome times that he yelled at me and made my life a living hell, but also had the compassion and understanding to know that he was an awesome dude, and he would guide you and lead you instead of just yelling at you. There was a method to his madness every single time, and it wasn't very often that he yelled at you, but when he yelled at you, stand the fuck by. That dude he would scare the shit out of you, but at the same time, he could be the nicest guy. Like, you would never know that he could yell. It's just, that's the type of person he was. He was such a kind dude. And, I see Chris every Memorial Day, brings him up, shares him, talks to him. His wife, Leslie, she comes and she loves it. And, it's all stories that she can show her daughter snippets that she can show her daughter. I want to say it's her daughter, right? Yeah, Chris. Yeah. So of all the stories of Wesley, and the dude there's nothing more I can say really. He was a solid guy. He's missed, and I remember when he passed, and I got that phone call. I think actually, Chris was the one who broke the news to me. If I'm not mistaken, because he was in school battalion. He knew he came from second tracks, and he was in my unit, and we knew each other. Or I called him because I had heard, hey, Wesley's dead. I was like, bullshit. So I called him because I knew he was there, and I think that's what happened. And I found out. But what Chris didn't mention is that when his track went down, he was crew chiefing it for a bunch of students, and they were splashing in the jetty. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, please. They were splashing in the jetty, and I guess the driver or something, maybe he used the hand throttle and pinned it, and it got stuck, or the plenum's busted, and it took on a lot of water and sunk to the bottom of the jetty. And he was able to get everybody else out except for himself. And from what I was told at the time, that's my understanding of what happened. And I mean, the dude's a fucking hero, man. Like, he saved his crew. He didn't make it, but if it wasn't for his actions, I don't think any of them would have been able to tell that story or have his impression on him for the rest of their life. I mean, he saved all their lives. I mean,
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, there isn't. I don't remember. I know that all the crew chiefs were trying to help out those students and get everyone out, and Rice was the last one in there. There just wasn't enough time. Remember, we had a guy named Luda. He tried to dive down and get Rice, and he just couldn't get him. I believe it was the throttle. Sometimes in AAVs, you press the gas pedal down, and it would just stick in that position. And amphibious assault vehicles, at least the old iteration, were top heavy because they have this huge engine in the front of it. And what happened was it just started to nosedive, and the hatches were open, so it took on water, and then it just sank. And that the aftermath of that was not ideal, but there were a lot of I'd say a lot of people remember him really well, and a lot of my friends were way closer to him than I was, and they still remember him. They do everything they can to honor him in his life.
Yeah. Well, like I said, rest easy, brother. We got it from here. It's entirely too many of these things that we have to deal with. And if you get into this profession, or you join the military, or you serve in this way in some capacity during your life, you will probably end up getting touched by this kind of a thing. This is just a dangerous job, and it's just got to be, keep your head on a swivel, kids, because even you can be the best, most trained warrior and operator, and it can still get you. So it is what it is. But we honor their sacrifice and their service, because the fact that you got into this profession, or got into service, or the military, or firefighting, that speaks volumes about your character to begin with, hopefully. So, Chuck, what do you have for us as we close out?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you to all today for tuning in. Thank you, Chris, for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you and hearing some of your stories and remembering Rice, because he impacted a lot of fucking people. _stories_official and Facebook at War Stories Podcast. If you're already following us, we really appreciate if you could share a post and help spread the word. You can also check out the link in our bio on both platforms to find all of our social media or media links. Website and our podcast is available on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. When you go to YouTube, make sure to hit the follow, like, subscribe, the ding bell, all that stuff. So when a new podcast drops, you get notified and you never miss an episode. Do you have a story to tell, or you know someone who does? We're always looking for law enforcement, veterans, corrections officers, dispatchers, firefighters, medics, ER docs, and ER nurses to feature on the show. If you're interested, email us. Actually, scratch that. Go to linkedin.com/War Stories Podcast and share with Dylan there. He can get you booked. You can also go to booking.warstories@gmail.com. It might take a little bit longer because it sometimes doesn't get checked as frequently as LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a better platform, and you get notified a lot faster. So please go to LinkedIn and go about that way and talk to our producer Dylan. He's a great guy, and he will get you booked. We would love to have you on. If you know someone who would be a great fit, please send them our way. Also check us out on TikTok at www.tiktok.com/War Stories Locker Room. Our producer's Dylan there, and he can, if you don't have a LinkedIn, you can also go there and talk to him there. And message Facebook Messenger too. Also Instagram, Dylan monitors those as well. He can get to you there. Thank you for all the support. Stay safe.
And until our next episode, come home with your shielder on it.